Hey, everybody.
Hello.
Hey,
Welcome back. It's Thursday, so you know what that means. It's time
Yes.
for another workshop. And in today's workshop, we're going to be going through uh, creating some swipe interactions. We'll go through the sort of basic principles of the interaction, how you can sort of take those and do some different things with it. We'll look at some examples. And then we've also got some uh, implementation examples as well. The words, it's early, okay? It's early for some folks, it's late for others. Anyways, so with all that, I think it's just time to get into it. So I'm going to go first here. We're going to look at all the things that you're going to need to build a swipe interaction, and then we'll move on from there. So let me go into the part that always takes the longest, which is figuring out where the thing is and then sharing it. Okay, there we go. All right, so we've got our white bar. Now, the white bar that you see here, which I should sort of ask. Anyways, this is the swipe bar that you're going to be using. So, if you're on a mobile phone and you've got a list of to-do items or emails, this is basically where the text will be sitting on top of, and you swipe that, and you have your interaction play behind it. So we've got a swipe right and a swipe left interaction or animation. And the way that we set this up is by using, first you have your idle, and then you have your blend state. So the way that the blend state works, for whichever direction you decide to swipe, you've got your idle, which is typically just a single key or a single key state where you're setting the idle state. And then you want to blend that with either a right swipe animation or a left swipe animation. So let's look at the swipe right animation first. So this is sort of the build-in. It's another single key animation where we're just setting the key. And this is really just controlling the scale of this object. There's some other things that are set here, like the opacity of the right side and things like that. And so when we blend those together, the idle and swipe right, so between 0 and 100, we get this scaling effect. And then at some point, right when the number hits 75, I believe, we actually have that finish animation play. So we've got the two animations that blend together to give us the scaling effect. And then when we hit the final number, we go into the swipe right final animation. And that's what plays this little XP up animation and then goes away. So that's the basic setup. You would do that for the swipe right or swipe left. So you'd have your blend state, and then whatever number you want it to finish on, it'll go into this this final animation. So swipe right, finish, or swipe left, finish. Now, the swipe right interaction is set up right now. So when we're going in a positive direction, it just goes to one finishing animation. But let's say you want that that animation here to play different animations depending on what number you're at. You can set it up like this. Instead of coming off of the main blend state, you can set up a new layer so that you can have this animation play different things at different times. So in this case, we've got the heart breaking at -50 because we're going in the left direction. And then when we get to 75, it plays the final animation. So to do that, you just need to add a new layer. You've got your swipe idle. So that's your, that's this animation here. It's just setting some keys for what the heart looks like in an idle state. Swipe left half, which is, let me get rid of this, which is the animation that plays when it gets to 50%. And then swipe left finish is the animation that plays when it gets to 100%. And you could keep breaking that down more and more if you wanted to. If you wanted something to play at 10%, you could have an animation for that. 30%, whatever. Stack those on top of each other. It's just important to note that you want to put those on its own layer and not use this blend state, because the blend state is really just controlling the overall scale of the top level group, and then everything that's nested under that group is animated here on this layer. So if you want to set it up in the most basic way, this is how you do it: into the blend state and then into your finish animation. And then you could also have the left animation coming off like that, so that when it's greater than or equal to 75, it goes to this. Or when it's, what would it be? Less than or equal to negative 75, it'll fire off this way. That's if you want one finishing animation. If you want your animations to have different times when they can play, you'd want to set it up like this. Okay, so that's essentially the basics of how this thing is set up. Let's look at some examples of this setup right here that Laura and Michael put together.
And just to add one point to that, I think another important thing there is that the artboard, or that the design took up the entire space of the artboard, and there was no padding. It makes it a lot easier at implementation time to really fit things to the actual box of the maybe a to-do item or something like that.
Yep. All right, Laura, take it away.
Sorry, I was mute. Yes, so the state machine, it's blend state. The blend state for 100, minus 100 when you swipe left, and 100 when you swipe right. And when you start, oh, why is not working? Is this okay? Oh, no, because of these. That's okay. And the idea was the task was watering your plant, and I added this little idle loop. That's the only different thing. So I have to add these two states at the end, and they trigger like the same number input, 100 and minus 100. But the state machine is pretty, it's that the same as Robert showed. It's pretty basic. I didn't make much to that. There's my animation here, the left, and this is the left static for the blend mode. This is the finish of the right one, and this is the static for the blend mode on the right. This is the idle. This has a bit of a mesh situation here, and this is the idle, which is the zero number in here. So yes, that's pretty much me. I basically rip off the Robert state machine.
Cool. All right, I'm gonna share your animation just really quickly through here because oh, never mind, I can't do that. Come on, never mind. The meshes aren't loading for me right now. So I guess we'll take a look at Michael's interaction next.
Yep. Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Can you hear me and see me now?
You're all good.
Oh, hi,
Crystal
everybody.
Clear.
Loud and clear.
Hello.
All right. So my examples aren't quite complete. I was just kind of playing around with some effects, some swipe effects. So I wanted to repurpose that liquid loader or liquid interaction I had shared earlier. So let's go ahead and give this a little play. So I thought it would be kind of satisfying to have this like stretch out as you're pulling it, and then it kind of just all breaks and snaps, and the swipe task goes off to the right. So I don't have the other direction in here, but I was just kind of playing around with this idea. And then kind of a similar thing here where it's like that, just that like resistance of like a spring. And then once it hits that certain point, it all breaks, and then the task would like move off to the right. So it's set up in a very similar way. I didn't necessarily work off of the template, but just kind of set it up because I knew I wasn't going to do both directions, but I could pretty easily add that in. So yeah, there's nothing in addition to what Robert and Laura shared. There's I guess what I'm calling like the default state, and then I've just got objects keyed here. So like the spring is all coiled up here, and then the task bar or the task background is keyed here, and then default 2, it's kind of at its furthest point before it goes into this finish animation. And it's the same for this liquid one. All of these ellipses are keyed kind of off to the left, and then once you get about halfway, they kind of spread out, and then the finish animation triggers once this hits 100 or over. So
are you using any blend mode tricks with the ellipses to get the
oh yeah this is the same setup. So the exclusion layer is just to invert everything. So instead of it being and then there's the color burn with like a really dark layer fill, and then color dodge with a medium gray. And so if you turn those off, it looks like that. When you turn them on, it looks like that. So yeah, I think it'd be cool that like I think you could play with this effect and get like really neat, like long, stretchy, like almost like slime looking stuff that would just start stretching out and then eventually just break apart and finish the animation. So I might play with that a little bit more. But yeah, really, I mean, just in general, it's a pretty simple setup, like in terms of getting this to work, at least within the editor, and kind of being able to experiment with those, I mean, breakpoints or when it triggers. So
yep.
I can imagine that's satisfying, or that would be satisfying to use in a real app.
Yeah, it'd just be like creating and deleting tasks all day. So
never get anything done except unless you had a to-do item that was like create and delete 1,000 other useless items. That's the dream app right there. All right, so everything we've showed you at this point is the way that you'd set it up for a mobile interaction, because typically when we think about swipe interactions, we think about them in terms of mobile development. But Pedro came up with a way through making a demo to make the whole thing work in the editor that you could actually set up swipe interactions on the desktop. So let's take a look at Pedro's example and see what kind of magic he's working with.
I'm going to share the screen. Okay, here it is. I wanted to make like a mock-up of a to-do app too, but I wanted to have it like working so you can, for example, show to a client or your boss. And the idea was to have everything working here. And it's like the alligator. I'm very inspired by Robert stories about alligators. And it's like the alligator to-do app. And here I have the list, and I wanted to have like an interaction where, for example, when you try to sweep the task you want to delete, it appears an alligator and it is, and here it is, and it disappears. I have made that it start again to make it work.
It's so cool.
I love that.
And and when you don't move it the task to the left or the right, it go back to the beginning. And that's it. Is the idea you can make it work in both sides. And for me, the idea here, the way I make it work, I have here the buttons. What I made is like an slider idea, but the slider is always moving with the mouse. And when I make click, that buttons appears. I make them visible. So now it's like if I go to the inputs here, I can see the value is 50 by default, but when I click, the buttons appear, and now I have this slide from 0 to 100. So I wanted to use the artboards, the nested artboards, because they are very powerful and have a lot of interesting options. And in this case, I wanted to have the control over the swipe in this way. I wanted to have all the animation here, so I could animate in this timeline, and then to make it work in the gesture you made with the hand when you are using the mobile, for example. In this case, I also use a little rig, just a few things to make the mouth open and this little blink here. And it's everything in the main artboard is just remapping this animation we have seen with this value I'm passing with the buttons. So the idea is very easy, because once you have the state machine working, here it is. Here, okay. One is working. Oh, this is not in play. No. It's just you can change the animation or make, for example, you could make a new animation in that timeline and it will work. So once you have the setup, you can make variations and try what you want, or for example, if for example this was something you have to make for a client, you can make a few versions with different characters or whatever, and it will be easy to make that change. So that's my example.
I love the list items that you have on your to-do list. Like, I want your to-do list.
And the one I made is the important one, that is play The Last of Us. So.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great task. You know, you got to set a little time aside for yourself, you know, and Ellie and Joel. Like, I understand. So thanks, Pedro. That's a really cool example. All of these examples are going to be up on the community when the video goes live. I'll include them all in the description, so you can check those out and grab them and use the state machines to build your own swipe interactions. All right, so we've showed you how they're built. Now let's take a look at how you would implement those into a to-do app, I believe.
That is my part.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so to give some background, we initially started this process with the idea of creating a to-do app. And I'll show you what works and what doesn't work. Well, the good news is the swiping works and the animation works. But my inexperience in SwiftUI needs a little bit more work with the actual management of the to-do items in the state. And yeah, if anyone is curious and they are SwiftUI people, they may be able to assist. But when we share the final version, it should work. And we'll also make the code in such a way that you can easily use it in your own application. You basically just add a modifier to the content. But yeah, without me talking too much, this is Robert's example. So the idea here is, you have your daily to-dos, and if you do your daily stretch, you can swipe and you get XP, and that you get points for doing that. If you fail to do something, you lose points. And you may be like, where's my point system? Like, why am I not seeing like my XP? And I'll get to that. That's part of the reason, like why it's not working. And that's more of a Swift UI thing than a Rive thing. But yeah, as you can see, it was quite easy to implement. And I'm not going to go too in depth in the actual coding, but if you are familiar with Swift UI, essentially what we have here, let me zoom in a bit. What we have here is in this view over here, we'll be displaying a list of items. And for each of the items in our list, this will be our to-do items. We are displaying this view over here, which is in this particular instance just called content cell. And we're adding an interaction to it. So here we're adding an add Rive swipe action. And the reason it looks like this is for it to be similar to what SwiftUI normally does. So if you are familiar, there is a delete interaction you can do, and there's one that's called swipe actions, and swipe actions will allow you to basically give your own personal actions to a view. And what this will allow you, or what SwiftUI will then do, is automatically allow you to drag the view left and right. So it's really simple to do, and you basically get everything out of the box. The problem is you can only have static content beneath that. Maybe it's possible to, you would be able to animate something, but you won't be able to get the percentage that you have dragged. And what I mean by that is that if we just restart the application, you'll see that what you essentially want is you want the animation to pop up not in a linear way, but like as you drag. So if I start dragging and I stop, I want it to bounce back and reset the animation. So that's essentially meant that we had to create our own custom view that allowed you to layer these animations and code in such a way. And yeah, the end goal would be for you to easily use this. And when we share the code, we will make sure to do that. But yeah, it's the main logic is happening in this swipeable cell. And without going into too much detail, part of this is essentially like you would use the Rive editor. It's a lot of like experimentation, trying different values, seeing what feels right, getting that motion to work consistently with like the experience that you what you want. Maybe it should be different from the default SwiftUI animation. Maybe you want it to be better aligned with the animation you're doing with Rive. But essentially what's happening is we're layering the content in a Z stack. So that means that something will be layered at the bottom and something will be layered at top. And the first thing that we layer is the view model. And this view model is initialized over here. This is a Rive view model. And to use Rive in SwiftUI, you need to import the Rive runtime after you add it as a package. And in the initialization, we specify the file name, the state machine name, and in this instance, we're setting a fit to be Rive fit.cover, meaning it will take up all the space possible. And in the actual view, we're displaying that. And then above that, we're rendering the content. And the content is being passed in automatically. This is a SwiftUI thing, and this will allow you to display whatever you pass into this particular view. In this instance, what we are passing in is this content cell. And all content cell is the name of the to-do item. It's nothing too special. And then here's where the actual logic happens. We have this main thing called offset, and this is a variable that's a double or a CG float if you are a SwiftUI person. And depending on this offset's value, you either set the content to the left or to the right. And this offset is being calculated in this gesture handler over here. And feel free to take a look at this code. If you want to copy paste it, it should work. If you want to have a bit more customization, if you want to modify how it feels, how it behaves, then you should be delving into this code. But the main thing that's now also happening, I'm gonna remove this print, is we're adding this onChange behavior. And this onChange is happening when the content changes, and it's happening when the offset in particular changes. And then we perform this action, and the action we perform is calling this function, set swipe percentage. And again, this is going to be dependent on like the behavior you want. In this instance, I'm dividing the offset by 2 just so that you get a bit more interaction of like dragging it for longer. I think this would also be an experimentation with you and your designers to make sure that's, you know, the animation you have and the values you feed it works correctly. But in the set swipe percentage, the main thing that we're doing is here I have a callback, and this callback is just a callback to the main view that uses this view model, and it calls on swipe left or on swipe right. So if you wanted to do certain behaviors on that, and it only does that after a delay. And that delay is just to ensure that the animation plays. Maybe you would want to delete the item as an example, but you want to make sure that the animation finishes. And there could be other ways you can do this. I just chose to do a delay. You could probably also listen to the events on the Rive animation. And then finally, this is the main crutch, is calling the input on your Rive animation. And in this instance, I'm setting it to be the same as the value passed into the percentage. And that is going to be essentially the offset that is applied to the other content. And yeah, that's the main thing. I think if you would want to see more animations, and now I broke it, if you want to see more animations like this, or more like a deeper dive into this example, we can definitely look into that. But yeah, this still needs a little bit of love and polish to make it feel awesome. But I think it already looks pretty cool.
Yeah, we'll do a pretty cool Rive GitHub page for things like this.
Well, we have Awesome Rive. Go check that out. It should be there.
That's what I'm thinking too. All right, so that's basically it for the workshop, and we will hang out for a little while to take some questions if y'all have any questions on this or semi-related topics. So throw it over to the chat and let you guys, you know, do your thing.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, and just a reminder, that's basically going to be it for this week's streaming schedule. We're not going to have a workshop next week, but we are going to be working on a mesh workshop. There's been a lot of interest in learning how to do meshes. JC's got a lot of tips, and I think we'll probably end up coordinating tomorrow to decide exactly what all we want to show. I don't think there's going to be, I think for mesh, there probably won't be much implementation going on there. So it'll be a full design stream. Got to be excited about that. All right. Well, doesn't look like we have too many questions coming in. So we'll call it a short workshop and let everybody get back to their Thursday. Appreciate everybody joining us. This is like slight 4D chess. We'll see. Yeah, nothing? Okay. Yeah, so yeah, we'll let you guys get back to your Thursday and enjoy your day. We will see y'all again on Tuesday for a regular live stream, and then we'll have a creative stream on Wednesday, which I'm not exactly sure who's doing that, but we'll let you know on Tuesday. Anyways, bye everybody, and thanks for joining us.
Bye bye.
See ya.
Bye.